The JSE is poised to start a positive session this morning with all eyes on the U.S. Federal Reserve's minutes later in the day. Jimmy Moyaha is an independent analyst and he joins us to discuss the latest market moves. Morning to you, Jimmy. So the rand remains sluggish against major currencies. What's going on?
Good morning, Good morning to the listeners and the viewers. Well, the rand, we've seen it sort of start to stagnate and slow down as it approaches that 16 rand 50 level. It's trading slightly below that, sitting at about 16.43, 16.40 or so. It's struggling to find momentum against the dollar to continue to show strength, particularly off the back of how strong the dollar has been in recent weeks. We know, of course, that those Fed minutes coming out later today will be an important guidance from the U.S. around their thoughts around the policy making decisions going forward. We already know that following the last inflation print last week, that two of the Fed members have already said that they still forecast that the U.S. Fed will continue on their rate hiking cycle. They haven't given guidance on the severity of those interest rate hikes and the frequency thereof. It might not be 75 basis points per hike going forward, but they are still anticipating that we will still see that going forward. So the minutes out today will give further guidance around what the U.S. Fed is thinking around their inflation policies, around their interest rate hikes off the back of that, as well as their support of their economy. That's obviously going to filter through to the U.S. dollar and filter through to the dollar against the rand. And for the moment, I think all eyes are on that, and you're seeing that the rand's reaction is not really being driven by any particular positivity around the rand. Albeit that we are seeing some strength in the rand in its ability to hold below the 16.50 level. But if we get some good news out of the U.S. to strengthen the dollar, we could see that the rand could start to edge closer to that 16.75 level.
The Moscow Exchange has resumed trading in debt securities for investors from countries that haven't joined sanctions imposed by the U.S. and its allies, ending a nearly 6-month freeze. Help us make sense of that.
So the Russian Securities Exchange actually had that freeze about 6 months ago, around about the time they received quite large investments as well. The ban is effectively being lifted on the countries that were not part of the sanctions list. We know that around 90% of the portfolio investments that went into Russia over the last year came from countries like Canada, Japan, and Europe, and those are the countries that have sanctioned Russia following their invasion of the Ukraine. So the resumption of their exchange and their securities trading will likely only benefit very few individuals. Some of them were based in Saudi Arabia. One of them from Saudi Arabia invested about $500 million US dollars in the securities exchange over the period just before the invasion of the Ukraine. But really, this is to benefit a small minority compared to the investors that are actually actively trading on the Russian securities exchange.
Right. Santam saw a big drop in headline earnings due to the floods in KwaZulu-Natal, and they're expecting earnings to fall by up to 62%?
Yes, so they're expecting headline earnings per share to fall between 43 and 62%, basic earnings per share between 41 and 61%. We'll get full guidance or full details around that on the 1st of September when they and Truworths report. But of course, as you rightly mentioned, they are outlining that a lot of their problems have come from the insurance claims that come through, or the performance rather than the problems has been from the insurance claims and the amount of claims that have come through as a result of the flooding we saw.
Let's talk about Truworths International. They also published a trading statement for the 53-week period ending 3 July this year. How have they fared?
So they're estimating an increase in their headline earnings per share as well as basic earnings per share. They're expecting an increase of about 38 to 43% in headline earnings per share, as well as about 53 to 58% for the 52-week period that's being measured. They've reported that for the 53-week period, that looks slightly different, a little better there. But if we're going to measure it on a 52-week annual period, then those numbers will again come out in detail on the 1st of September. They've said that they've had some strong rebounds in terms of some of their divisions and sales in some areas. But again, we'll only know in greater detail on the 1st of September when they officially release those results, we hope.
Jimmy Moyaha is an independent analyst. Thank you very much for availing yourself this morning.